Savvy, Grow Your Green Stuff, Cover Your Assets webinar. We're really excited to have you all join us today and learn more about insurance and covering your assets. And so we will get going. So I just want to let you guys know that this is in conjunction, this webinar is in conjunction with America Saves Week. America Saves is a national partner who does all sorts of information about savings. They do a savings pledge. It's hashtag I'm saving for, and they're actually doing a really great contest this week. This week. So if you get your picture or video in by tomorrow, I believe, on their website, you can be enrolled to win, I think, $1,000. So really great information. They send out emails, tweets. They send out text alerts if you'd like. All the really great things. So it's in the chat if you'd like to check out more about America Saves Week. Again, to win that $1,000. So really great stuff. So I am Sasha Grobinstetter, and I am with the University of Illinois Extension. I'm a consumer economics educator, and I service the Grundy, Kankakee, and Will counties. And then I'm going to introduce Jordy.
Hi, my name is Jordy Justice, and I am the Financial Literacy Coordinator at Southern Illinois University, and I run the Saluki Sense Financial Literacy Program here.
Thanks, Jordy. So we're gonna, I got one more couple more questions, and then Jordy will get going on. So, what state or county are you located in? So, like I said, I am in Kankakee, Grundy, and Will counties. That's where I kind of live in those areas. Where are you from? Tazewell. Champaign. Yay, Champaign! And yay, Tazewell. Sangamon County, great. Champaign. Lots of champagnes. Chicago, great. So in Cook County. Jackson, wonderful. So, great, everyone. So I'm going to let Jordy get started. Take it away, Jordy.
Okay. So a 2011 survey conducted by the National Association of Insurance Commissioners revealed that only 45% of the 1,000 participants felt confident enough with their insurance decisions. So this survey helped us lead to our learning objectives for this webinar. So we want you to be able to walk away from this webinar and know, why is insurance important, and how does risk impact a financial plan? What types of insurance can I purchase? So we want you to learn to identify the different types of insurance that we will discuss today. That includes renters, auto, and life insurance. And then also, which financial terms should I understand and protect myself and my assets against risk? So be able to understand the new terms related to insurance and risk. With those learning objectives in mind, let's go ahead and start just discussing insurance basics. If you were to look up the definition of insurance in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, you're going to get a complicated definition of coverage by a contract whereby one party undertakes to indemnify or guarantee another against loss by a specified contingency or peril. That is complicated. Basically, what it is saying is insurance is here to protect you against the unknown. Insurance is there to help you when you cannot personally afford a risk, whether that is with your vehicle or with your home or your health and your life. You are working so hard to build a solid financial footing for yourself and your family, and accidents and disasters happen. If you do not have a safety net, it could leave you in financial ruin. So having the right insurance can help protect your life and your ability to earn income, help keep a roof over your head, and help protect the assets that you have worked so hard to accumulate. Insurance is a form of risk management. So there's 4 different ways you can deal with that financial risk. You can choose to just bear the risk. In other words, you're retaining or assuming that risk. You bear that financial burden and do not actively seek to reduce the likelihood of the event or its financial severity. So, for example, you drop the collision insurance on your 10-year-old car, yet you still drive your car. You are bearing that risk if something were to happen, that you financially are responsible for that 100%. You can choose to reduce or control the risk. You reduce the likelihood of an event and or you take actions that would reduce that financial loss if an event were to occur. So an example of reducing that risk. You wear a seatbelt, which is going to reduce the likelihood of an injury in an accident, and you don't speed, so you're reducing the likelihood of an accident in general. That's reducing or controlling that risk. You can choose to remove the risk. You go beyond reducing or controlling the risk and you just avoid it entirely. So you do not wear, you sell your car and you start using public transportation. So you're removing that risk. Or you can choose to transfer or share the risk. You arrange for someone else to bear that financial responsibility for an event. Surety bonds, hold harmless agreements, and insurance. Those are all ways of transferring or sharing that risk. So as an example, some people choose to self-insure, which means they choose to bear all the risk if anything were to go wrong. It is true that you can handle a certain amount of risk without much hardship if you have sufficient cash reserves on hand, an emergency fund, for instance. However, having insurance allows you to share the risk for those unanticipated and much more costly problems. As an example, you wreck your car, and hopefully no one is hurt and you have auto insurance. But you need some cash to cover a deductible, which we will discuss, before your insurance even kicks in. You may have to have additional cash to pay for a rental car until yours can be repaired. You will need that emergency fund to cover the deductible and the cost of the rental car. So by having that insurance, you can transfer the majority of that financial risk from the accident to your auto insurance company. You're protecting yourself. So why do we need it? Because as we just discussed, it does protect us if those big bad accidents were to occur. It protects us from having to deplete our emergency fund, and it protects us from losing a lot of money. With accidents, you could go to court, you could get sued. You're protecting yourself and putting that risk on the insurance company and taking it off yourself. So we've kind of started talking about auto insurance and why it is important, but it, as a basic definition, provides financial protection from loss due to an accident or other damage to your car, your truck, your van, SUV, whatever you drive. So as a vehicle owner in the state of Illinois, you are required to have auto insurance. You must always carry your insurance card in your vehicle and show it upon request by any law enforcement officer. And your insurance company will send you an insurance card usually when your policy is renewed. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Please answer in the chat box. Some statistics. Have you ever talked with your passengers in your vehicle while driving? You can answer yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Have you ever played the radio or music while driving? Have you ever eaten while driving? Last one. Have you ever used a cell phone while driving? If you answered yes to any of these questions, are you financially prepared for the risk you are taking by diminishing your sole focus on the roadways? Increasing numbers of drivers are choosing to go without insurance. The reasons are easy enough to explain. Hard economic times with steady or rising rates make it really tough for low and moderate wage earners to make the payments and stay legally insured. But these statistics that I'm getting ready to show you are showing why it's so important that you do have insurance. According to a report by the National Highway Traffic Administration, 81% of us talk with other passengers while driving, 66% play with their music, 29% eat or drink, and 25% use a cell phone. Uninsured motorists can create huge financial problems when they're involved in accidents. So driving without insurance or the ability to pay for those damages caused in an accident puts others at financial risk. So we've discussed why it's important to have auto insurance. We've got that concept driven home. Now let's understand a little bit more about the basics of auto insurance. So there's different types of coverage that you can sign up to have. Liability, collision, and comprehensive are the three differing types. Liability is going to protect you, or if you or another person, if you give them permission to drive your car, if you were to injure or kill someone or damage property within an accident. Then there's collision. It's covering damage to your own vehicle in an accident, even if the accident is your fault. And last but not least, there's comprehensive. That covers losses other than collision. So that's covering those natural disasters, those break-ins, vandalism, theft. Or you can get a combination of all three and have full coverage, which is definitely what we always recommend. With your insurance, you have a deductible, and it is the amount when you have a claim that you have to pay before your insurance company is going to pay that balance. So, discussion, please feel free to use the chat box on the side. Should you carry more than what your deductible, what is your deductible? Let's go ahead and change this up a little bit. What is your deductible, and what does that mean for the impact of your insurance rates? Stacia, if you want to go ahead and tune in here, how do you think that deductible impacts insurance rates?
Well, deductibles kind of typically, when you have a deductible, it's going to change the rate depending on how high or how low the deductible is. So that's kind of a good piece there. So depending on how, if it's a $500 deductible or a $1,000 deductible, it's going to change how much you pay. So.
I agree. So let's go ahead and continue having that discussion. I'm kind of jumping around here, guys. I'm sorry. So with your deductibles, it's important to know that your types, the amount of your deductible can vary depending on the coverage that you have. So with collision coverage, your deductible may be a little bit higher. Collision, your car is colliding with another car, a tree, another object. With comprehensive, it's a chance that your deductible could be lower. That's with those natural disasters and such. So it's important to know the differences and when your deductible may change if it does. So as we're talking about deductibles, let's kind of go back here and discuss minimums. The state of Illinois does require that you have minimum liability coverage of $25,000 in the injury of a death of one person in an accident, $50,000 in the injury or death of more than one person in an accident, and $20,000 to the damage to property of another person. So that's making you in compliance with the mandatory insurance law. With that being said, do you agree with those minimums? Do you think you should carry more than what the state mandated minimum is? Go ahead and utilize that chat box. Stacia, if you want to tune in again. But guys, we'd love to hear from you too. What do you think about those minimums?
I think I have a biased answer because I used to be an insurance agent, but I think minimums. I think having insurance is good, right? So you're a step above those who don't have insurance. So if the minimums are the only thing that you can have, then that's great. But I think having more coverage is also better.
And I agree. I definitely think having more coverage, you're protecting yourself, you're covering your assets. So it is important to know to look into how much you should have coverage-wise, and sometimes go above those minimums. So that kind of addressed as well. Is the state of Illinois minimum enough? It also depends on what you're driving. If you're driving a nice, expensive vehicle, you may want to have higher than the minimum, because if you were to get into an accident, you have to have enough funds in your insurance policy to cover that accident, so you don't have to pay more out of pocket. So definitely different points to consider. So that's kind of the basics with some auto insurance, the different types of coverages that there are. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Seisha to let her talk to you about renter's insurance. If you have questions, again, please utilize that chat box on the side of the screen.
Thanks, Jordy. I'm going to move forward, and I just want to just quickly just talk about the state minimums real quick, just to kind of cap off, because I think it's important. Not all of us see Bugattis driving around all the time, but just to know that, let's say you only had the state minimums, and if something were to happen, and you hit this vehicle and you total it, you might be liable for this $2.8 million. This is an extreme example. I just want to make that very clear. But it's something to just be aware of. The expensive cars are out there, and sometimes you don't realize it. And if you damage them, you're going to be liable for that. So we're going to talk about renter's insurance, and I'm really excited to talk about it. So we've learned all about the car insurance, so let's dive into the renter's insurance piece of this. So renter's insurance really is for anyone who may be living in an apartment, or maybe even a dorm, whether you're in college or a young adult or even like a young small family. There's a lot of people who live in apartments or even condos, and this is going to help take care of your personal belongings, your personal liability, and your temporary living expenses, which we'll discuss here in a minute. For those of you who are in college, you may want to double check with your parents and their insurance agent to see if your personal property, so like your things like your clothes and your makeup or your gadgets, whatever that may be, is covered in a dorm room under their homeowner's insurance. You also may want to check and see how long you're covered for, because you might be 18, might be 20, might be 22. It just depends. Not all insurance companies are the same. So make sure and double check with your insurance agent or your parents. And you definitely want to make sure that you are knowing how much, what's covered and where. So what does it cover? So your renter's insurance covers things like theft. So if someone broke into your apartment, also personal property. So if your apartment were to catch fire or any kind of other damage, like light wind or lightning, if a plane fell on your apartment or a car drove through it, I've seen many vehicles go through the fronts of apartment complexes. It's kind of scary. They'll also cover in the event that someone gets hurt in your home, and that they sue you over the injuries. So if somebody were to get hurt, maybe a good example could be maybe you're having some friends over and you're drinking wine or beer, and they accidentally break the glass in your home, and they slit their, cut their hand pretty good, and they have to go to the hospital, and it's quite a bit of money to get their hand fixed. They will take, if they sued you, this piece of it would take care of that. Renter's insurance will also cover items, people's items. So like, let's say your friend left something over at your house, they'll take care of that as well for you. And it'll also take care of your living expenses if you have to live somewhere else, if your apartment's being repaired. So one example I have is a story about a girl whose apartment flooded due to some someone upstairs not turning their water off. So while she was showering herself, so above like her, she's like on the first floor or on the second floor, while she was showering, the tiles above her started to collapse on her because she was in the shower. So they had to take care of her and put her up somewhere that way while, take care of the apartment and fix it while she was gone. Some other things to consider. We're going to cover a majority of these in the next slide, just to let you know that when you buy or purchase renter's insurance from an insurance agent, there's going to be a list of questions that they're going to ask you. So you want to double check. They're going to talk about the dollar amount of coverage, the cost of the deductible, the actual cash value or replacement cost, which we'll discuss in just a second, the location, and of course the claims history. So a dollar amount of coverage. So this is probably the most important factor to consider when purchasing renter's insurance. Coverage is not placed on each individual item, but it's determined on all your possessions as a whole. So you have to think of like your possessions as like a big lot, and that's how they're kind of going to figure out how much it's worth. You'll need to consider that in the event of a total loss, how much it would replace all of your personal possessions. So when you start to think about things like all the costs associated with clothing, like your underwear, your socks, your shoes, your undergarments, coats, sweaters, all of that would have to be replaced in case of a total loss. Other things like laptops, iPads, or other music, as well as TVs and microwaves. For us ladies, we have makeup and jewelry. And for men, we have cologne and gadgets, so you definitely want to put those into consideration. And of course, one thing to note is that high dollar items such as like jewelry and guns have like a limit placed on the coverage allowed. So if you have, an engagement ring or, like some really expensive pieces of collectibles, you're going to want to get a separate policy for to cover those items, and you can talk to your insurance agent about that. So you can let them know, hey, I have an engagement ring, or hey, I have a wedding ring, and they can help you with that for sure. So up next, of course, is the deductible. The deductible is the next biggest piece of how much your renter's insurance is going to cost. So this is the amount you have to pay for out-of-pocket expenses before the insurance company will cover the remaining costs. Of course, the deductibles are required for claims related to personal belongings and temporary living expenses. So if, like we talked about earlier, like if the friend cut their hand on a wine glass or a beer glass, that deductible wouldn't have to be paid for that. But if you have an issue where like that water comes in from above, or a fire comes and takes out everything, you're gonna have to pay that deductible before you get reimbursed for those amounts. Again, deductibles can be as little as $250, but they can be as high as $1,000. And of course, the higher the deductible, the lower the premium, because you are taking on more risk yourself, and so that's why the premium is going to be lower. And vice versa, the lower the deductible, the higher the premium. So just some things to be considerate of and to be aware of. And when you get a quote from somebody, you can always kind of play with the numbers. You can say, I want to hear a deductible at $250, $500, $1,000, whatever that they have, and they can kind of help you move through that process. The next piece of renter's insurance that when you choose is that you have to choose between actual cash value or replacement costs. Now, personally, as a previous insurance agent, I would have my clients, I would talk to them about replacement costs, and I'll tell you here why in a second. So when you have a total loss, the actual cash value will pay you for what that item would be worth today. So let's say, for example, you bought a Mac back in 2015, so 2 years ago. So it's a little older model. It's probably still really good. But they wouldn't replace the whole value of that laptop. They would only replace, because now we have 2017 Macs, and so they would only replace what the value was as it is as of today. So you might have to look up the value of it, like maybe on eBay or on some secondhand site to see what they would replace that. That's what replacement costs or actual cash value is. Replacement cost in the total event of a total loss, it'll replace your 2015 Mac with a 2017 Mac. So replacement cost is more expensive, but ultimately gets you back to where you were before the total loss. We're on slide 32, so sorry guys. So another piece of this puzzle that you should be aware of is the location. So premiums will rise if the rented home or unit is in a high crime area. So whether you're living in either Chicago or Bloomington or Urbana-Champaign, where your apartment is going to definitely change that. Remember, insurance is about protecting your risk. So living in Chicago versus Urbana, of course, has different risk, right? You know, college town versus a city, all those sorts of things. Also, if you filed a renter's insurance claim before, your premium or the amount you pay could potentially be higher. So it's just something to be definitely aware of. You know, as well as for the people who are around you, maybe there are lots of claims, maybe there's a lot of issues there, maybe police have been called lately, those kind of things. This is going to have an impact on the renter's insurance. So, another thing when we're purchasing renter's insurance is definitely to shop around. Companies view risk differently and therefore, you know, apply different premiums to different policies. So you should definitely, you know, go to 2 or 3 different places, see how much that's going to cost. Another great thing about renter's insurance is that if you do bundle your auto and your renter's insurance, they may give you a discount. So that may be another reason why you want to definitely shop around and see what's going on. Another tip is that you want to keep your receipts. So let's say you bought a new TV. I remember in grad school, I was really excited. I was in my own apartment for the first time in a while, and I was going to get a really nice flat screen TV. Now, if you were to keep those receipts, that would help to when, if you had a total loss, like the house caught on fire, the apartment complex is completely up in smokes, that will help to make sure that you get that claim paid and get that TV back. Another tip, of course, is to videotape your rented space, or even just take photos. Just walk through your home and show all the belongings and kind of describe them out loud. This will prove, of course, that if you had an item that was lost or stolen. Also, if you know, again, if you had a fire and everything is gone, it will help to get you back to where you were before. So definitely some good things to consider. You can also put those things on the cloud. So that way, you know, it's not in your house. I know for most of us, we really use technology pretty well. So we can put those things up, and that way we can get that taken care of. So now that we've kind of tackled renter's insurance and auto insurance, we're going to briefly kind of just jump into life insurance, because I think it's an important insurance to discuss and talk about. And so we're going to jump right in. So what really is life insurance? So life insurance is a type of insurance that pays out to a beneficiary when you die. Typically, you would go to an insurance agent, or there are big companies who sell life insurance, or maybe even a financial planner or a financial counselor who could help you find someone to purchase life insurance. Life insurance may not be for everyone right now. It might be good for now. It might be good for later. But it's definitely a great tool to have out there. So, of course, a beneficiary is a person. It could be your spouse. It could be your son or your daughter. You can't really leave it to pets, even though that sounds kind of cool. But definitely, you don't want to have that beneficiary designated. So some things to think about. So there are really the main 2 types of life insurance to be aware of. So there's whole life insurance and term life insurance. So life insurance, whole life insurance is for your whole life. That's kind of like the gist of it. So these are premiums. As long as they're paid, this is going to follow you your whole life. Typically, premiums stay the same they're the same level. So let's say you had a policy and you're paying $50 a month. You're going to pay $50 a month for your whole life. Now let's say if you waited 5 years, 10 years maybe to purchase a whole life insurance policy, the premium might be higher because you waited 10 years to get that insurance going. You're more likely to die versus when you're at 20 to 30. So that's a one thing to be aware of. Term life insurance is typically cheaper, and it's usually covered for a certain period of time. So some terms can be from from now until 65. It could be a 10-year term, a 20-year term, a 30-year term, whatever you decide to purchase. Those purchases will end at that period. So if you only got 10 years, so from age 20 to 30, it only cover you that certain amount of time. So one thing about term is that their premiums are smaller than they are with whole life, but they can increase depending on the policy. So they could increase every 2 years or every 5 or every 10. And term's good for things when you need lots of extra insurance. For example, you might buy term insurance when you purchase a house or have a baby. That way, if something were to happen to you, your spouse could maybe potentially pay off the house, or the baby could have money for college, or now that your income is gone since you've deceased, you can get that taken care of. So whole life and term, like I said, these are kind of the main. There are other types of insurance as well out there, but definitely if you don't understand the policy, don't purchase it. That's an important piece for us to be kind of throwing out there. These two, like I said, are the most common out there. So we have a discussion question. So why is purchasing life insurance important? So for me, life insurance was important because I wanted to make sure that my debts were taken care of and that there was some money left over for my house. I think that's a good piece of it. One thing, of course, with life insurance is that it's a way to cover the risk for your family and loved ones in the event that you were to pass away. It's really not an appropriate way to kind of invest or really to get money out of it. Really, life insurance should be really used for that specific coverage of your loss of your wages. So over a lifetime, a person can make over $1 million, and if you were to die at 30 or 35, you might that spouse, child, whoever it may be that you're leaving behind is going to be missing out on those wages for the rest of your life. So it helps to kind of keep them stable and more balanced. Why would you purchase life insurance? Have any of you purchased life insurance before? I mean, like I said, I purchased when I was pretty young. I was important to me, and there was a reason why. I had a friend pass away. Another reason why maybe to purchase life insurance is, especially for young people, is that recently I've been seeing a lot of maybe those GoFundMes or you caring to help with funeral expenses when someone passes away. As sad and tragic as those are, and it's great that people can help out. Having any kind of life insurance can definitely help take care of that burden, either off a family member or parents, whoever it may be. Even if you have a small policy to take care of your burial. Scary money and death. That's what we're talking about. I know it's a little scary, but definitely something to be aware of. So. Of course, like we talked about earlier, you can always self-insure. You, again, bear that risk when you set that money aside to deal with unanticipated financial losses. So, for most of us, we couldn't pay for that 2.8 million Bugatti, but maybe we could save away enough money to, again, pay for those funeral expenses or maybe some larger car repairs. With insurance, it takes that responsibility off of you and pools that money and makes sure that, when you have an issue or a concern or a problem, it gets taken care of. But self-insuring, it's a good tool. It's a good way to save money as well, and that way you can earmark that money for whatever it may need to be. So, well, we're kind of near the end of our program today. If you are a University of Illinois student, within the 3 campuses, we have what's called the Financial Literacy Badges Program. So this event is a Protect badge eligible through the Financial Literacy Badges Program at the University of Illinois Student Money Management Center. The University of Illinois students can earn digital badges through the Financial Literacy Badges Program, which uses the Open Badges platform from Mozilla to award digital badges that can be displayed on multiple social media sites. Digital badges can help enhance your online portfolio by providing verifiable recognition to the activities you've completed. By participating in 3 badge-eligible events, you could earn a digital badge to enhance your online professional portfolio. So you can learn more about it in the chat box. There is a link for the Financial Literacy Badges Program, and of course you can. This is through the grant from Hire One. And as we're wrapping up, does anyone have any questions for us? We kind of went through a lot of information pretty quickly. I know we said we were going to be here for the whole hour, but if you have any questions we talked about a lot of things. We talked about auto insurance and renter's insurance and life insurance. We'd be more than happy to hear from you, any questions that you may have. So I'm going to, Jordy, feel free to chime in. And we'll get going.
Seisha, so why don't we just recap some of the main points? So why is it important to have renter's insurance? Should you automatically get renter's insurance when you first move out and get your own apartment?
For me, like I said, I'm a little biased because I used to be an insurance agent, but I think that it's important to have renter's insurance, just in case something does happen. You never know when life is going to happen. Like I said, the story about that girl, I actually knew her, and she was telling me about how her ceiling was falling in on her, and she was in the shower, and it was really crazy. But we never know when a fire is going to happen or theft, especially depending on where you live. So something to be definitely considerate of. So, I also think, a great question is, what if you have more than the minimum, what does it look like for you guys? How does having more than the minimum insurance affect you? So, I'm gonna let Jordy answer that. If you guys want to answer too, go ahead.
So you, as Safety Net has pointed out on the side, you don't want to purchase so much insurance that you can't afford it. But having more than the minimum can be very important to protect your assets, to protect what you have, to make sure that you are being insured for the full value of either your car or your apartment or home or your life. So it's important to really research into this, talk with your different insurance companies to do research on what the best rates are for you and how much coverage you should have.
I just also want to mention that with insurance, let's say you did hit that 2.8 million Bugatti, right? And you don't have insurance or you don't have enough insurance. I think that it's important to know that if something were to happen, and you were to be sued for the amount, they could technically garnish your wages, so they can take away future wages. So even though you don't have money now, that doesn't mean that in the future that they couldn't get it. So it's important to be at least coverage enough. So like I said, 2.8 million is a lot. A lot of us don't drive. I've never seen a Bugatti on the road. But I think that it's important to be aware of having at least enough insurance that you cover most cars on the road. So.
Okay, any other questions from our participants? If there are no other questions, then we just want to thank you for tuning in to today's webinar. Our next webinar is going to be about credit scores, credit reports, and your credit history. We invite you all to tune in, and that will be on April 24th. Thank you very much.